Hi, I hope that you are doing well today. Um, I thought I would talk about the old phrase, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Now, I did a short video a few years ago about that because it's not exactly true. You see, anytime you hear something that is what's called a dichotomy, which is basically black or white, good or evil, up or down, where it's only two possible options, it's almost always going to be wrong. Because between those two extremes, there's a spectrum of other possibilities. There may only be one other one in the middle. There may be several. There may be hundreds or thousands or millions. It's impossible to say, but if there's only two, it's usually not going to be true. So, this statement that people love to say so many times, if you consider carefully the possibilities, then you might realize, okay, say something kills me, or I kill myself because of it. Surely there are other possibilities. Maybe I'll get sick. And maybe because I get sick, I'll become immune. Or maybe I'll get sick, and because of the type of sickness, I'll be a carrier. Not good. Maybe something will happen to me such that I will lose my job. And because I've lost my job, I won't be focused on doing what I need to do for my job, and it'll open me up to possibilities that I wasn't aware of. Something may fall into my lap, so to speak, wherein suddenly there's this opportunity that I wasn't aware of. I have gone through some things in my life, things that aren't pleasant. From bullying and emotional abuse and sexual abuse and sexual harassment to harassment. And these things have happened in and outside of the workplace. I had a few incidences of harassment at Amazon, and I've had sexual harassment at a couple of places. I had one place I worked at where my boss sometimes would call me after hours, and she sounded kind of drunk, and she was saying how she loved me and stuff, and it was just really inappropriate. And of course, she denied that she was drinking, but I'd been in her house and she had a cabinet full of alcohol. So yeah, I've been poor. I've been so poor that one time it was very slim pickings for food, and for a while I was living off of credit cards, and there were times where I was living in neighborhoods that were not exactly safe. I think that as a white male, I was a little bit fortunate. Nobody bothered me. I did have one person when I was moving in who tricked me and stole some things from me while he was helping me move. And I think he got a box of stuff that was not exactly functional, so he got what he deserved. I have one time I was on a motorcycle with my wife driving. We were going down this big hill on the way to the airport because I had to go to Singapore. This was in Indonesia. And we were wearing shorts, or at least I was wearing shorts. She wasn't. We had our helmets on, thankfully. And Suddenly, this motorcycle goes by us, and the guy on the motorcycle grabs the strap of my camera bag. And it was a $1,500 camera. And pulled and continued to pull until he realized he wasn't going to get the camera, because it wasn't a camera bag made in Indonesia sold to the locals. It was a bag from Singapore that came with the camera. So it was good quality. The strap didn't get damaged at all. Unfortunately, he pulled for so long that our motorcycle started going like this, and we ended up going like that, which really sucked, because being on a hill, downhill, we slid farther than we would have otherwise. And of course, it did some damage to the motorcycle. I had a gouge in my elbow, and I had a significant amount of skin missing from my left knee. There's still a little bit of a scar there. My wife, I believe she had a fat lip, and she had, because of the pants had helped to protect her. So she didn't have as many wounds as I did. But it really sucked because I was supposed to be on an airplane, and that, I called up my boss and I said, this happened, and she was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll get you on an airplane when you're ready." But still, that was a really negative experience, and I think that people who have been rich all of their lives just don't understand how stressful, how much difficulty we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Because if you're rich, you may not be happy, but you're protected in ways that the rest of us aren't. You get up and your motorcycle doesn't start, you just call the mechanic. They come to your house and they fix it right then and there. Or they tow it back to their shop if they need to on a special vehicle. If it's your car, 500,000 McLaren or whatever, they'll put it on a flatbed and take it to their place, or they'll fix it at your location. Or you may even have a private mechanic who's on call. So, yeah, your vehicle breaks down, it's no biggie. You don't even sweat the thousands of dollars you spend, or they spend, I should say. But I've been through some things. I've been through depression many times now. Anxiety has been a part of my life since puberty. Both social and general anxiety, although I've gotten control of the social anxiety. Sometimes I have control of the depression and general anxiety. Sometimes I don't. Last year, at one point, Amazon was really messing with me. They wrote me up for harassment for somebody I had tried to help. I didn't harass them. I was worried about them because they were doing something that was a safety violation that could have gotten them written up. So instead of going to the manager and saying, "Hey, so-and-so is sitting where they're not supposed to be sitting," I asked some questions to verify whether or not the person needed medical attention. Because I've done that. I had done that before for other people. And nope. And then a month or two later, I got a call from an external investigator saying, "What happened?" And being the helpful person I want to be, they didn't say the name of the person correctly. They didn't have it spelled the way I thought it was supposed to be spelled. And I could have just dropped it right there and nothing, would have happened probably. But I figured out who they were talking about, and it was the person I had helped, or tried to help anyways. At the end, that person didn't really need any help from me. They were just somewhat sick, but not enough that they needed help. And they didn't want help, that's for sure. And they had been sick for days, and I talked to them on other days. But one day, June 16th, a manager I didn't know came to me and gave me a written warning for harassing that person. even though all I'd been doing was helping. And that really upset me. It upset me because I had already talked to the investigator and explained everything to the investigator, and there was supposedly, it was okay. And I had gone out of my way to make sure the incident was understood by me and her, and that the incident was documented and everything. And my reward for my honesty and my extra effort when the person was going to hang up, actually, I initiated some questions to try and figure out who the person they were talking about was. Had I just shut my mouth, which I definitely would advise you always do if you're talking to anybody at Amazon, especially management, had I shut my mouth, maybe I would have been written up. Or maybe because they were persecuting me, they would have written me up anyways. And so, within an hour of that very disturbing event, where I was punished for doing no wrong, I got notification from Sedgwick, which is Amazon's persecutor of choice for workers' compensation benefits, that again they had denied me workers' comp benefits for the injury that I had sustained at work. At that point, it hit me so hard, having just been written up for something I didn't do, for being accused of something I hadn't done, that I was not on medication at that time for my anxiety and depression. I went like this, boom. I just mentally hit rock bottom. I was looking at the balconies thinking, which one should I jump off of to maximize the effect of my suicide, so Amazon's management might possibly think twice before they do something like that again. It's a 3-story tall building. And I was thinking about going up to the 3rd floor, which wasn't restricted access, which would have given me, more clearance to fall. And I was going to try to aim for a pole that was sticking up, that wasn't shielded or anything like that, would have impaled me very nicely. Probably shut down that area of the building for quite some time because of blood splattering hundreds of feet in every direction. But I fortunately kept myself from doing that, and eventually got back on medication. But, it was days of just mental misery. And if you've ever been depressed, you know what I'm talking about. If you're bipolar, you know what I'm talking about. It was horrible. Every day I would drag myself into work, and I would feel so negative and so unhappy and so ready to die. They had already written me up once because of union organization. So basically, it boils down to they engaged in unfair labor practices by writing me up. And actually, a National Labor Relations Board judge had declared that the policy that they had used to punish me and to fire or punish other people was illegal, and that they had to get rid of that policy and make a public statement to everybody at Amazon. And of course, Amazon, being the scumbags that they are, fought it instead, because Amazon will never, never, never do anything other than what they want to do, even if it means lives will be lost, even if it means they have to pay fines, because the cost of the fines is less than the profits that they will make, because the courts cannot fine them a large enough amount of money. They're so big that they laugh at these $1 million fines, just like other companies do. So what had really also made that experience so painful for me was just within a week or so of that event on June 16th, my landlord had given me notice that I would have to move out. And it turned out that the only reason that they were going to kick me out was because they wanted to renovate. they wanted to jack the price up $400 after kicking me out and renovating. They were tired of waiting for me to be gone, and they were going to do it to everybody else that had been there a long time too. And I warned some of the people I was friends with that had been there a long time that, yeah, they said they're going to kick everybody out that's been here a long time so they can get more money. Because the new owner, who took it over in 2019, was a scumbag slumlord who only cared about money. He would talk politely and quietly and pretend to be a nice guy, but deep down inside, he was so unethical. He made me I was disgusted with him. He pretended to be this good Christian, and really he was a jerk. But so within the month of June, I got notice that I had to move out. I got a second write-up for something I didn't do, on top of a first write-up that was something that was protected by law. And I was rejected yet again by Sedgwick for workers' comp. So December rejection. January first write-up. June second write-up. Second workers' comp rejection. Loss of place to live. Have to move out by the end of July. So while I was really a mess. I mean, I was spinning out of control mentally. And I was so angry. And then it just kept on. So what happened was, as I was looking for apartments to move to in June, wanted to get it done fast. And every time I would sit down on my computer to work on it, I'd do something else to avoid doing what I needed to do because it was causing me so much anxiety, stress, and distress. It was the thing I needed to do, I must do, I could not. First, I got my sister to help me, and that was great. She came to my rescue, so to speak. She helped me look at apartments. We found some possibilities. The best one, oh my God, 3 bedrooms, $800 and some. It was a scam. And I actually reported it to the website that it was listed on, and they didn't take it down, so they were party to the scam, I guess. Because I verified with the actual real estate company that that was not right. The listing, I mean. Then, finally, I get back on my medications and find myself an apartment to move to. So that's better, and it was a bit closer to work. So that was good. It was farther away from the food pantry that I work at, but I only, or not work at, but volunteer at it. I only went there one day a week on Friday, so it wasn't a big deal that I had to drive farther. So, instead of being like 35 minutes, it was like 45 minutes. And then in October, something happened. I don't remember what it was. I was upset about it. And I was talking to this fake HR guy, because most of the people on site that are part of HR are not HR trained. They do not have a degree in HR. They are trained by Amazon. So they only know what Amazon tells them to do. They don't know what the law says about HR's responsibility. It is a very slick, slimy trick that they do. And there's a high turnover rate for the people who figure it out and the people who are ethical. So in October, I'm talking to this guy whom I thought I could trust. He was a manager, and I thought I could trust him. I should have realized by then, after the number of managers that had screwed me over at Amazon, that you can't trust Amazon's managers. But I thought he was different. I thought he was one of the few that was good and actually cared about us. And he asked me about this incident where I had talked to another HR person because I was concerned about a third HR person. And I said to this person, would you please train that person so that they avoid this situation that I'm afraid is going to happen to them. That's what it was. And initially, she seemed to misunderstand, and I'm not sure why. Um, but I explained some more, and finally, she was like, "Yeah, okay, I understand, and yeah, you're right. It's something to be concerned about." But she went to this manager I'm sitting there talking to, and she told him something. And so he's asking me what happened. I explained, and he said, I was upset. I was upset because of the other thing that I was dealing with him. And then he starts asking about this, and I'm becoming upset. He says, "Don't worry about it. It's okay. Don't worry. You're not in trouble. There's no problem. You're not going to be in trouble. Remember that." So then in November, my manager comes and gets me and takes me to meet with him again, where she and he write me up for a third and final written warning for harassing that HR person when I just asked her to help this new HR person protect her, basically. I was livid. I mean, I can't remember the last time I was that upset. I was literally sitting there shaking. I was so upset. I mean, I could feel my body shaking. And I sat there while she read it. And when she was done, I said, "Congratulations on screwing me over," or something like that. And then I said, "Fuck you." And I walked away. Unfortunately, they were, I don't know, enjoying themselves maybe, or they didn't care, or they didn't understand they should leave me alone so I could calm down. But whatever their reason was, they followed me. I went out of the security restricted area into the break area that's outside of it. Sat down, and they come over, and I swear again, and they're telling me not to swear. And the manager is saying that he's trying to protect me, he's trying to help me. And so finally I go with them to continue this torment. And I was so upset because once again I was being punished for something I had not done. And I sat there and I was shaking again. Just shaking. I was so upset. It was all I could do to not run out of the room. Not scream at them for betraying me, for doing this thing to me that I didn't deserve. And they made these claims like, "Oh, we care about you. We're trying to help you. We're not happy about this." And it was all BS. See, when you go into Amazon as a manager, you are trained to not care. You are trained to betray the people underneath you if that is what the business need is. There is a lot of fake compassion, a lot of fake listening, a lot of no follow through, no follow up, a lot of inaction. They talk a lot about safety, but they don't actually care about safety. And having been there for almost 3 years, I saw that. It was obvious, when you have somebody saying one thing and doing another, there's only a certain amount of times they can lie to you before you realize they're lying to you. And no matter what they say, and as long as they continue to behave in that way, it's clear that they're liars. So anyways, it was on and on and on. And I explained in great detail the conversation that I had had with that HR person about the other HR person. And they never denied that that was the person who had filed the complaint. They never denied it. Not the one who was the person I was concerned about, but the intermediary that I was asking, "Please help this person." They never denied that. So, yeah, wow. I mean, that meeting seemed to last for 15 cajillion years. I mean, it was just so long. And, the platitudes, and I explained everything. And 2 times the HR manager, he lied. He said 2 things that were not true. And both things I said, to which I replied, were, stop. Please don't say that. It's not true. Stop. One of the things was, I had told this HR person to tell the other person, you can't smile, which was so stupid and so false. It was just ridiculous. What I had said was, teach her how to be careful to smile enough to seem pleasant, but not too much to attract unwanted attention or desire, is in a nutshell what I was trying to protect this young lady from. Because she's a little bit older than my daughter. And I was trying to help, trying to do the right thing. Because that's the way I was raised. Not like these people at Amazon. Most of them weren't raised that way. Not the managers anyways. Most of them are young. Easy to manipulate by their bosses. And he made some statements like, oh, I talked to my team about this situation and they agreed that what I had done was wrong. I was thinking, oh my God, he talked to all the regular agents, the ones whom I'm friends with? I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. And there was another thing that he had said, and I don't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was upsetting. And finally, they let me leave. Because I stood at the door, holding onto the door handle for a few more minutes as they were still talking to me before they finally said, yes, you can go. And I went into what are called these little booths for making phone calls that are soundproof. Well, partially soundproof and not terribly well ventilated unless you open the door. And supposedly this is a private place where you can make confidential calls and all that. But the truth of the matter is the telephones are bugged. So you can't. They're listening to whatever you're saying. So if you make a call from in there to a lawyer, you just gave the game up. But I went in there and I cried. I just sat there and cried for a while. And then I waited until I calmed down enough. And then went back inside, clocked out, went home. And then 2 days later, my boss's boss came to get me. Took me to meet the HR manager's boss, whom I barely knew. I wasn't really impressed with her because she seemed to be very much not interested in talking to us peons. She had I don't know if she's shy or if she has social anxiety or if she's just a bitch. I have no idea. But she never really made an interaction with me beyond what she had to, or with anybody else that I'm aware of. But, I don't know. Maybe it was me that she didn't like, or maybe it was just shyness, or maybe she's just an unpleasant person. And she was looking at me like I was some kind of cockroach, some kind of insect that she wanted to squish. The whole conversation. So he starts talking and he starts asking me these vague questions. And I knew what the question was really about. But what I had learned was Amazon does something called a STU, which is seek to understand. It's the same thing that the police do when they're trying to incriminate you. They ask you nice questions and they hope that you will say things that will make you look bad. Even if you've done nothing wrong, if they're after you, they'll twist it. I mean, look at what they did to me, twice writing me up by twisting the facts around and lying. So what he was really asking was, did you swear? And I was, I was no longer willing to participate in this little game of, okay, I'll incriminate myself to you. Even if I've done nothing wrong here, I'll answer your questions so that you can use it against me. So I just played along and pretended I didn't understand. So finally she got impatient and she was like, did you swear at them? I said, I didn't answer. What I said instead was, if I swore at them, it would have been to express my frustration at being accused of something I didn't do. Basically is what I said. So she realized I hadn't actually answered the question. I'll give her a clap for that. And she asked me again. And I said, I'm not going to answer that. She said, why? And I said, well, I know what a seek to understand is. It's a seek to incriminate, and I'm not going to answer you. And I said, do I need a lawyer? Are you going to fire me? And she wouldn't answer that question. And then she said some more nonsense, and I asked again, are you going to fire me? Do I need a lawyer? And finally, she just kind of gave up, and they let me leave. Now, please keep in mind, when I do something wrong and my manager comes to me and says, hey, you did this thing that was wrong, and there's a write-up sheet and you have the choice to sign or not sign it, I sign it. But when I'm being accused of something I did not do, I will not sign it. And in this situation, since I had already provided information to my boss and my manager, which is really a supervisor in Amazon. Manager is equivalent to supervisor. Operations manager is equivalent to a manager, and so on and so forth. So, I didn't sign anything. And then, so this was like in November, and then in December 11th, I'm walking toward the bathroom. Obviously, I needed to go. And I see my manager's manager. I like the guy. He was kind of quirky. He was ex-military, and whenever he was stressed, he'd have all these facial tics and stuff, and it was just kind of painful to watch him struggle with how he was feeling about what he was having to do. And I was making jokes with him and stuff. Suddenly he says, I need you to get your stuff. And I said, why, are you firing me? He said, well, I just need you to go get your stuff. And then he was like, well, you do that after you're done with your shift. And I said, well, we're already finished over there. There's nothing more to do. Okay, well, then I need you to get your stuff. I said, oh, okay. Well, the only reason you'd be asking me to do that is because you're firing me. But he wouldn't explain. Because, of course, why would they be honest? They are tricky. So I knew it. I knew that was the end. And the sad thing of it is the passing weeks prior to that, I had tried to, keep my head down, to be nice to everybody. I normally was, but, nicer. And I was putting up jokes on what's called the Voice of Associates, or VOA. I would put jokes up there. Put jokes up about Santa and the elves and stuff like that. And one of the managers whom I despised there, a senior ops manager named Chris, I'm not even going to hide his name. He's one of those charismatics who's a piece of crap and lies and manipulates and takes advantage of people. And he had done that to me, and I knew it. And I was very surprised because I had put up a message kind of poking fun a little bit at the union. And he was like, sorry you're not happy here. Kind of a message, Not like antagonistic, but total misunderstanding. But this thing is not really a two-way street. So unless I post a brand new message and try and address it to the person who I'm responding to, there's really no way to respond to. And a lot of people, the reason they do that is because a lot of the time the answers you get on the VOA from management, if you even get an answer, are BS. A lot of times it's like, we'll have somebody, maybe it's your manager or HR, reach out to you, and then nothing happens. I've had that happen to me many times, and so have many other people. So December 11th, he walks me to the nearest security gate. I was like, why are we going this way? He said, well, all of the rooms for PXT, which is the name for the fake HR people, are full. So we have to go to this other one. And I was like, yeah, yeah, we're definitely being fired. I said, I feel sorry for you. He said, why? I said, because you're doing this to me and you know it's wrong. And he's like, well, I knew what I was getting into when I took this job. And then I felt like saying I didn't say it. I said, well, then that means you're scum. If you knew that you were going to be screwing people over and you still took the job, that means you're scum. And that's basically how I feel about pretty much every manager at Amazon now. The higher up, the more scummy they are. I despise them. They have no ethics. They have no morals. They are human vermin. But getting back to my experience, you have to understand something. See, my birthday is in December. My birthday had passed not too long before that. And they knew, because I had posted it on VOA, that I was going to be having shoulder replacement surgery for the injury I had happened to me at work that they had refused to give me workers' compensation for. They knew that I was going to have it, and my medical leave had been approved. So I was going to be getting short-term disability. So they fired me 5.5 days before that surgery. They fired me after my birthday. And it was obviously not a coincidence that they had waited to do that. And you know, the funniest thing of it is a couple weeks before that had happened, I had a meeting with a manager, another manager whom I thought I could trust. I don't know if she was the one exception or not. She had, helped me out a few times, kept me at work when they wanted to send me home. At least, for a week, and then they still sent me home. But and then they brought me back the next day because they had screwed up again. Yay, Amazon, you. So I had this conversation with her, and it was a fascinating conversation for her, I guess, in which I explained that I was being persecuted and targeted and treated unfairly, and why. Now, she did not admit anything, but she made a comment that suggested that I was right. So that was really interesting. Very, very interesting. And I've mentioned that comment to people, and everybody I mentioned it to says, yeah, it sounds like she was saying you're right. So I left. They deleted my account shortly after I posted a message on VOA saying, don't trust any managers. Goodbye, everybody. I'm sorry. They've gotten rid of me finally. And this is what they had done to a lot of people who were involved in organizing the union. They got rid of us. And I gave a bunch of information that very day to a member of the Teamsters Union. He didn't ever reach out to me again, and I kept on forgetting to give a more detailed write-up of it. But yeah, the Teamsters just kind of dropped the potato, which, to be fair, the previous organizers of the union, before the Teamsters took over, had done the same thing to me, which doesn't really say much for the Teamsters or the previous organization. Were socialists. And no, I mean literally. I'm not insulting them. I mean they were literally part of a socialist party. So I had my surgery. I had applied for unemployment, but because of the surgery, I couldn't. I was told I couldn't get it. I still tried anyways. I contacted MetLife because there was a policy through MetLife that would help with certain kinds of injuries, and they turned me down. And of course, workers' comp turned me down. I didn't get short-term disability, so no help from MetLife, no help from workers' comp, no help from short-term disability, no help from unemployment benefits, and Amazon lied to the unemployment benefits people in Kentucky about why I was fired. Misconduct. And I did actually find out a couple of important things one of which I remember is that when I was having that meeting with the manager, the HR manager, I mean, fake HR manager that I thought I could trust with my manager, where they gave me the final written warning. When I was standing there holding on to the doorknob, I asked him, "Do you remember last month when we had the conversation about this incident?" And he said, "Yeah." "Do you remember when you told me that I shouldn't worry, that I wasn't in trouble, there was nothing, there was no problem?" He said, "Yeah." "Why did you say that?" He said, "Oh, I could see you were upset." That's the kind of behavior you can expect from a manager at Amazon. They will stab you in the back and pretend to be your friend. And I had learned a couple other things. One of the final things I learned was I had told him to tell the HR lady who had turned me in for not harassing anybody to stay away from me. I didn't ever want to see her or talk to her. But I finally decided, well, what if he lied about it? Because number one, they had never said outright who had filed the complaint against me. But it was clear to me that it was her. And so finally, I don't know, a week or two before I got fired, I had talked to him, gotten some further information from him, in which he said, "You should be careful about what you say to people." And I said, "Well, I don't even know what I said wrong. What I did for that person, I've done for other people. What I did for the person in March, I've done for other people. And it's never been a problem. I have helped people who were dehydrated. I've helped people who were injured. What am I doing wrong?" He said, "Well, you made a suggestion." What? Man, I was upset. But, and then the icing on the cake, and I'm sure Amazon realized this, was when I got the notification from Kentucky that I wasn't going to get any benefits because I was not able to look for work and get a job. I was recovering from major surgery on my shoulder. But apparently, if you're injured after being fired, you don't get any help. Now, fortunately, Ohio helped me. They gave me Medicaid and SNAP. But that was Ohio. Kentucky, that's for you, Kentucky. You take one of the world's largest employers in and give them tax breaks and screw us over. Why don't you make a long bench and tell us all to bend over, you jerks? You and Amazon can take turns you doing you-know-what. So, once I got that rejection, I was just like, I knew it. I knew I wasn't going to get any help. And so I stopped filing. You're supposed to file every 2 weeks, and I stopped filing. Then I got another rejection saying, "You were fired for misconduct, so we're not going to help you. You can appeal this." Now, I did actually appeal it. I did look for a lawyer to sue Amazon in civil court for what they had done to me. Persecution, targeting, unfair labor practices, false termination, false accusations. Couldn't find one. I got a lawyer to help me with appealing in the unemployment court. And then from talking to her, she made it pretty clear that the chances that I was going to get anything, because I wasn't able to work and I wasn't able to look for work and I had stopped applying, was pretty much near to zero. And I said, "Well, what about at least expunging that false accusation?" She said, "You'll have to do a civil lawsuit for that." America only has justice if you've got money. Legal aid doesn't do much. I mean, the last time I dealt with legal aid, which was in Wisconsin, I had a problem with an employer. And when they found out that one of the people on the board for that company was a lawyer, they dropped me like a hot potato. They had told me they were taking my case, and then suddenly I get a manager's call, and he's like, "Nope, we're not taking your case." He wouldn't explain why. But I knew what it was about. I knew it was about the lawyer, tit for tat kind of thing. She, the owner slash executive director had a lot of money. and powerful people from the government, the local government, on the board of directors. So I'm not at all impressed with legal aid. They've never done squat for me, except for give me some advice. But that's not even the worst part of it. The worst part of it was in February. I lost my father. He was a little less than 2 months away from his 86th birthday. So I've got all these emotions just bottled up inside of me, and I can't get them out. All this anger towards a company that I worked so hard for, that I contributed so much, giving them feedback, warning them when people were doing things that were against the rules, which is such an irony since Amazon doesn't care about their own rules, let alone laws. Losing my dad, losing my job. But I'm still alive. And I'm not done fighting Amazon. I will grind you to dust if I can. So you better take an assassin's mark and put it on me, because I'm not going to stop until I win in court. I will not take a settlement from you. I will make sure the world sees you for the scum that you are. You mark my words. You will regret what you did to me. I'm not threatening to do something bad to you, except for what you deserve in court. Because you know what? If I were to throw away my life by trying to hurt the people who hurt me at Amazon, you're not even worth it. You're like slugs in the garden. No, you're not. That's too good for you. You are like Ebola. You're like Ebola. That's all you are to me. So why would I throw away the rest of my life living in prison because I got rid of some Ebola? I'm not gonna. I'm going to destroy you in court in front of the world. I will not take a settlement. I will fight you till my last breath. And if that last breath is because you have murdered me, okay. I'd rather fight you to the death than let you win. You chose the wrong person. I'm not giving up. You can keep on paying off the government like you did in Indiana. I'm not going to give up, and you're not going to win. Because you were wrong, I was right, and you know it, and I know it. See, this is the thing. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So in this case, it's making me stronger. But if you look around, look at all of the people who are sitting out in the streets, summer and winter, boiling in the summer, freezing in the winter, sometimes dying, doing drugs, because they didn't get stronger and they didn't die, but they couldn't cope with what happened to them. And that is one of the other possibilities. Another possibility is they could go around killing people for what was done to them. There are lots of possibilities. So I'm sorry, Taylor Swift. I know you sang the song, but it's wrong. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger unless it makes you weaker or crazy or addicted to something so you can escape the pain, or turns you into a maniac, or whatever. You maybe just keep on going, plodding along like a slave. So I hope my experience and the explanation of why that phrase isn't really right has helped you. Thanks for watching. I know it's been a long video, looking at 50 minutes here. I hope you have a great day.